Hi, I'm Richard, the founder of 10 Adventures, and this is the 10 Adventures podcast. Each week we talk to real people about real adventures as they explore this incredible planet we all live on.
Welcome back to the 10 Adventures podcast. For my whole life, I've been drawn to wild places with dramatic scenery. And today we're going to talk about a country that combines truly wild places with history, culture, and great food. We're talking about Peru, and here to share his expertise is Paul Cripps, owner of Amazonas Explorer, a boutique tour operator in Cuzco. Hi, Paul. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, hi. Nice to meet you.
So first thing, you're British. You're living in Peru. You run a tour operator. How did this all happen that you changed your life and now you're in Peru?
I studied a course at university back in the UK called Iberian and Latin American Studies. And on my third year, I was given a year abroad and I chose to visit Peru against a lot of recommendations because this was back in 1988, which was a fairly rough time for Peru. And I completely fell in love with the place. I was back there in 1990. I happened to take my kayak with me in 1988 and explored the rivers. And then I brought a mountain bike out in 1990 and we were exploring the trails. And then I just kept exploring. I traveled around the world, worked as a tour conductor all over places like Nepal, Venezuela, Costa Rica, New Zealand, but always coming back to Peru, just fell in love with the place. And I settled there in 1996 and I've been living there ever since and I'm still loving it. It's just a great country. You never get bored of it.
And what have been some of the changes you've seen as someone who's worked in tourism for, almost 30 years in terms of people that come to Peru?
I would say back in the end of the 80s, it was very much a backpacker destination. You had to be careful. There were certain areas you couldn't go to. But I would say since the mid-90s, Peru really got its act together and it's promoting tourism and it's a safe destination. I would say, before it was more aimed at the younger crowd, the 18 to 30-year-olds. Now everything from we've taken an 80-year-old trekking and we've taken kids from 6 to 7 years old up, and it's a great location for all those people. The accommodation on offer has increased and is so much better. The logistics are better. The safety, the food is amazing too. So it's just a good, safe place that you can come and everything will work. So it's definitely improved in many, many ways.
And when you talk to people who have just had their first trip to Peru, what's the feedback that they say? What do people that have never been there, maybe don't know much about it, after they've done a trip? What do they think?
So we always say to clients, think of this as your first trip to Peru, because you could come back to Peru like I have been doing literally year after year after year. Unfortunately, a lot of people come, tick off the main sites, and then never come back. There is so much to do in Peru that you could spend a lifetime exploring it. I'm still exploring Cuzco. Clients come back and they're overawed by the hospitality of the people, the guides, the quality of the accommodation, the way it just all works. And I think also I would say the scenery is, to me, it's and certainly clients that are blown away by how beautiful Peru is.
And so you talked about just how diverse it is and how much there is to explore, having been there for 35 years, I think, in your case. Can you maybe, for people who, maybe just know where Peru is on a map, describe the different parts of it so people can kind of understand where maybe the places they might want to go are?
Okay, so we have three very distinct regions, starting with the coastal region, and literally coming up from the Atacama Desert, the world's driest desert, where Lima, the capital, is. Lima has some of the best seafood in the world. It's got the #1 restaurant in the world at the moment. It's got amazing ruins. It's got amazing museums. You may have heard of the Nazca Lines, the Ballestas Islands. So you've got a whole coastal region. And then you come up into the Andes, where you've got places like Arequipa, the White City, the Colca Canyon, which is one of the world's deepest canyons, where you can go and see condors. And then up into Cuzco and the Sacred Valley, which is where a lot of people come, which is the gateway to Machu Picchu, where you've got activities, everything from trekking to biking to hiking, to rafting. You've got Lake Titicaca, then the Altiplano, And then we've got in fact, more than a third of Peru is jungle, is Amazon rainforest, where you've just got amazing wildlife. You've got jaguars, tapirs, capybaras, just some of the best bird life. In fact, we've just won the most number of birds you can see in a day award. So Peru it's one of these sort of hot spots it's got a little bit of everything.
And so looking at these different regions, what are some of the most popular adventures or, trips that people undertake in Peru?
I forgot to mention, we also have beach and amazing surfing as well. So if you're into surfing and seafood, we've got amazing beach. Most popular adventures, obviously, the hook to Peru is Machu Picchu. I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of that. And that's probably why 99% of the people come to Peru is to see Machu Picchu. But there is so much more to Peru and to explore than just Machu Picchu. A classic way of getting to Machu Picchu, and I think one of the classic treks that we do, is called the Inca Trail. And we do a 5-day, 4-night trek to Machu Picchu, which can fit into a beautiful sort of long week trip with a bit of exploration of Cusco. If you're into whitewater rafting, we have the Rio Apurimac, which is one of the world's deepest canyons, and it's got some of the best whitewater, certainly in South America. We have the Rio Cotahuasi, which is technically the world's deepest canyon, and that's 7 days of intense whitewater. We have amazing mountain biking. We also have amazing e-biking now, and you can do anything from full-on extreme downhill mountain biking to long journeys from Lake Titicaca to Cusco to Machu Picchu. And then we have a whole range of cultural tours for people who are looking for more gentle adventures. Could be visits to local communities, learning about weaving. We have a great guy who does a whole tour just dedicated to potatoes. There's over 4,000 types of potato in Peru. We do ceramic workshops. So there's a little bit of everything. So those are some of the main trips that we do in Peru.
I'm really interested in this Lake Titicaca to Cusco bike tour. Tell me a little bit about that. Those are kind of two magical destinations. I've never heard of a trip like this.
So this is a trip we put together a few years ago, and it took us quite a while to work out the route because it's not the main road at all. You fly into Lake Titicaca. You need to take it very easy for the first couple of days because that's 3,800 meters altitude. So we go and stay with the local community. And then literally from the shores of Lake Titicaca, we cycle off into what's called the Altiplano, the high plain. And we stop at little villages on the way. We camp in the middle of nowhere. We go through this amazing canyon. On the way, my business partner has amazing alpaca hacienda. And we spend the night surrounded by 2,000 to 3,000 alpacas, which is incredible. We go past huge lakes. It's a mix of dirt road. There's a little bit of single track. There's a little bit of road. There's some ruins to visit. And basically each day cycling. And then you end up at a town called Ollantaytambo, which is literally we jump on a train down to Machu Picchu and back to Cusco. So I think it's a 9-day trip in all. But it's an amazing experience. Yeah.
And people can do that with e-bikes as well?
We're working on how to charge the e-bikes because...
Now I was thinking. I'm like...
if we take a generator, you could literally do most of it on an e-bike as well. So that would be an option, yeah.
What an incredible trip. You talked a little bit about routes into Machu Picchu. You talked about the Inca Trail. Can you maybe just describe what it's like? I know, probably everyone has Inca Trail on their bucket list. It's, one of those ones like the Tour de Mont Blanc, the W in Chile, that's there. What does the day-by-day look like for that trip?
If there's one bit of advice I can give to your listeners, there are various different Inca Trails. In fact, there's thousands of Inca Trails all over Peru, but the classic Inca Trail that comes to Machu Picchu, do it in 5 days and 4 nights. There's a lot of companies offering it for 1 day less. You're probably only going to do Machu Picchu and the Inca Trail once in your lifetime. So take your time. Day one, it is quite busy. You do need to book in advance. There are only 500 permits a day, and that includes porters, cooks, and guides. So it's roughly 250 tourists a day get to do the Inca Trail. And there are certain days in 2024 that are already sold out. May, June, July gets very busy. So if you're going to do the Inca Trail, book as far in advance as possible. Take it easy on day one. Day two, climbing up through incredible forests. So, what is lovely is that there are all sorts of different areas as you climb up in the mountains. You go up into the high Andes, you drop down into the cloud forest. Day 3, you're on old Inca Trail, following this route to this incredible ruin. It's called Patamarca, which is the place above the clouds. Here's a little tip. Also, a lot of people say I must get to Machu Picchu to see the sunrise. I've got to say it's nearly always somewhat disappointing. Very rarely do you get a good sunrise in Machu Picchu, and I really wouldn't bother. The sunrise at the last campsite on the Inca Trail is way better. And then on day 4, you can hike into Machu Picchu, see the ruins briefly, and then day 5, spend the whole day looking around Machu Picchu. It's just a really good trip. And then you need to add on maybe 1 or 2 days before to acclimatize. But you can do it. And literally, you can fly in on a Sunday, and you can fly out on the following Sunday. So it is a great trek, and it is probably one of the classic treks of the region. You don't have to trek to get to Machu Picchu. That's another thing. People think they have to trek. You do have an option. You can just take a train there and back. And then you can also do what's called the 1-day kilometer 104 Royal Inca Trail. And that doesn't involve any camping, where you basically get off the train a bit early, and then you hike up about 11 kilometers, and you do the last bit of the final day of the Inca Trail, and you hike into Machu Picchu through the Sun Gate, spend the night near Machu Picchu, and then the following day visit the ruins. And that's doable by just about anyone. I would say we've taken 10-year-olds on that, and it's been absolutely fine.
On the Inca Trail, accommodations each night, that's always a question. People say, is there a lodge I can stay in? Burst some people's bubbles here, Paul.
The Inca Trail, there are no lodges. You have to camp, but the camping is very comfortable. We have comfy, they're 3-person tents, but we only put 2 people in them. We have nice, thick, inflatable thermarest mattresses. We provide sleeping bags with thermal liners. They even have pillows. Basically, someone knocks on your tent in the morning and brings you a hot cup of tea and a bowl of hot water to have a wash in. You get up, you wander to the dining tent, where you'll have a hot breakfast prepared for you. You'll pick up some snacks, grab your bag, fill up with water, and then you set off walking. And all the camp is taken down by the porters and carried and then set up in time for the next camping. So it's pretty luxurious and really not that hard. Your job is just to hike and enjoy the route. And then we stop on the way, and we have a full lunch, and we can fill up with water. We have snacks. We get into camp about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll have tea, coffee, popcorn, snacks again, and then we'll have a full 3-course dinner. So it's pretty luxurious, but you do have to camp. It's 3 nights camping.
And there's some other incredible trekking trails in the vicinity of Cusco. Do you want to talk about some of those? And just, I think the Inca Trail's great, but there's some rugged trails that go to some really beautiful places.
If you're looking for the next one up from Machu Picchu, but you still want to go to Machu Picchu, there's an incredible trek which is called Choqquequirao to Machu Picchu. And this is 7 days of hiking, and then the 8th day you spend in Machu Picchu. It's a lot tougher. You basically have to descend into a 3,000 meter deep canyon and then climb up the other side. But to give you a little bit of the statistics, if Machu Picchu gets 3,000 to 4,000 people a day, Choqquequirao ruins probably doesn't even get that in a year. So you're literally going to be on your own trekking in the middle of nowhere, and you're actually on an Inca Trail, and then you come out below Machu Picchu, and then you catch a train up from Machu Picchu up to Machu Picchu and spend the day there. And the funny thing is that most people who do that trek say the worst day of the trek was the day in Machu Picchu because there's so many tourists. Another amazing trek that is really worth doing is a trek called Ausangati, which is 5 days high altitude trekking around the mountains. And then if you're looking for something a bit shorter, we've just developed a new trek. It's called Huacrapucara, and that's a 2-day hike into some Inca ruins. And you'll literally see no one. You'll camp right beside the ruins. You'll have the whole place to yourself. So that's spectacular. We have a trek to Laris, which is very good for families because we can actually access all the campsites by 4x4, so you can really mix it up and make it nice and safe. And there's loads of lovely communities. There's hot springs you can trek to as well. So there's lots of options. There's also a lot of day hikes we do if you don't fancy camping, and you can stay in beautiful hotels and then do an amazing hike during the day and enjoy some great food.
It's funny you mentioned day hikes. I'm actually part of a hiking club in Cusco on Facebook. I signed up, I don't know, during the pandemic, just tried to find something. And so I'm, I check Facebook every couple of days. I see there's a group going out to all these just stunning day hikes from Cusco, to the point where, it feels like just spending a week in Cusco, enjoying the food and the history of the Sacred Valley. And then, as you say, going out on a few day hikes, you can really explore some beautiful places.
That's run by my good friend Cody DeWitt, who's I saw him the other day, and we were talking just about the hike club and how we can mix it up a bit. And we do get a lot of inquiries about doing day hikes and stuff. But yeah, just even like in Cusco, there's some amazing hikes. You tend to get a lot of people who end up just getting on a bus and doing the standard bus tour. And I've got to warn you, Cusco does get very busy, and we think 2024 is going to be very busy indeed. And back in 2019, we were definitely beginning to suffer with a bit of over-tourism. But with a little bit of thought and a willingness to put a pair of boots on and go for a hike, you can literally, from where all the main ruins are, the next valley over, you'll be totally on your own exploring Inca ruins, and there'll be no one there. So yeah, a few days hiking in and around Cusco and the Sacred Valley makes a brilliant trip, and you can sort of mix it up and do some culture, have some amazing food, and see and meet some really cool people too.
I'm really interested. You talk about how Choqquequirau is right next door, is great ruins, and there's nobody on that trail. I see it here in the Canadian Rockies that, you go to a few places and there'll be hundreds, 500 cars there. You drive 5 minutes down the road, there's as good a hike or a better hike, and there's 2 cars. Why do you think, you're right in the center of one of the, epicenters of like over tourism with Machu Picchu, but there's still this incredible stuff nearby. Why do you think people, all do the same thing?
I think sadly it's down to people clicking on TripAdvisor top 5 things to do in Peru or Instagram, and they see the picture of people standing at Rainbow Mountain, and they don't think beyond that. My advice would be buy a guidebook. Don't believe what the top 5 things to do, because otherwise you'll be doing that. The 6 to 10 things to do are even better, and the 10 to 15 are even better than that. I can certainly burst a few people's bubbles about Rainbow Mountain. Everyone's probably heard of the Rainbow Mountain. Here's a fact. There are thousands of Rainbow Mountains all over Peru. Sadly, thanks to global warming, the glaciers are melting and Rainbow Mountains are popping up all over the place. If you go to the Rainbow Mountain, you will literally be one of 1,000 to 2,000 people, and it's horrible. But the next valley over, you will be no one, and you will be seeing an equally good and fascinating Rainbow Mountain. So yeah, open your horizons, talk to the experts. We've been doing it for years, and that's what we love doing, and that's what we spend a lot of time is out exploring new routes to work out how to get people off the beaten track. Yet at the same time, you can still visit the main ruins and the must-sees, but just do them slightly out of sync with everyone else. It really is possible to almost have Peru to yourself.
It's funny. I was in Japan recently, and I was talking with a guy who actually had a physical guidebook, and I was struggling, like, where do we go? What do? You go online, and it's thousands of websites. You have no idea if any of it's any good. And this one guy had a guidebook. He said, like, helps me, like, know where to go, know what to do. At the same time, having a local who can understand what your needs are, because we're all different. I've seen lots of temples. I don't want to see as many temples. I want to sample food and understand, Japanese culture. Having a local guide who can understand your needs and then find you those places that are going to be best suited. It's like an art that, we've all, not all of us, but people have forgotten. Just they go into Google, and whatever the top 5 things are, as you say in TripAdvisor, that's what they do. And everyone kind of goes to the exact same place, which ruins the experience.
And certainly one thing to say, very much in Peru, you very much pay for what you get. So if it's really cheap, don't expect very much at all. Having a good guide completely makes a trip. And we at 10 Adventures work with the best guides. In fact, we've got on our books, there's a magazine in the UK called Wanderlust, which is a bit like your Outside magazine in the States.
I love it. I used to live in the UK. I love Wanderlust. You can't buy it here in Canada, though. It's such a disappointment.
So in 2016, Ephraim Valius was voted world's best guide, and he works for us. So,
oh wow!
And if you get a chance, and you need to book him way in advance, he's just an amazing character to spend time with. Our guides are great to, spending time with them, having fun. A lot of them come from the adventure background, from the rafting, from the trekking, from the biking, and as you say, there's only so many ruins you can see. And certainly with family trips, for example, kids can only deal with a certain number of ruins per day. So mixing it up and doing a bit of fun, maybe doing some rafting, maybe jumping on an e-bike, maybe jumping on a bike or a stand-up paddleboard, that really just puts the adventure back into it. I think a lot of people come to Peru and they've got this set list, largely from TripAdvisor, and we joke that at the end of their holiday, they'll have to go and have a holiday because they've literally just been flat out ticking. I'm hoping that after the pandemic and stuff, people have realized that they've got a bit more time. So my advice to people, and I would say one thing that you asked about what people say is, I wish I'd stayed longer. Fitting in an extra half day in the Sacred Valley to stay in a hotel and enjoy the swimming pool and read a book is a really good thing. Spending an extra half day in Cusco and having a cappuccino overlooking the plaza or doing a cooking course or something like that. It really is the number of people who try and take stuff out the free day in Cusco, and then when they get to Cusco, try and put it back in again is a joke, really. But try and spend a bit more time if you can, and don't try and do the whole of Peru in 6 days. You can't do it. Concentrate on one little bit and have a good holiday. I think that would be my major advice to people.
I love how you shared this, like, slow down, enjoy things more. And when I talk to people who are maybe about to take their first ever, active or adventure trip, and I say, like, what have been the best parts of other trips? Often they'll talk about, one day we just sat in the park, or we just people watched from a cafe. And as you dig a bit more, we develop these trips like we work. We're going to wake up at 7, get in the line for this museum, do this. And we're just rushing around, trying to accomplish all these things every day. And the best part is when you finally just let yourself relax and enjoy yourself. And I know, with myself, I try and do less and less with my family, try to build in the time just to enjoy, because a big part of going to any country is getting to see how the local people live, having the time to just, enjoy the food and not just be in a bus or a mini cab or, moving around all the time, because it's work versus pleasure. And pleasure, as you said, go a bit slower, see a little bit less, but you'll actually enjoy it more, and you'll come back totally recharged and reinvigorated because you'll have this great experience, which we travel not to work, but to relax and recharge.
And meeting people and spending time with people and getting those serendipitous moments where you walk over a hill and there's a lady tending her llamas. You can't build that into an itinerary, but if you've got the time, that will make a huge difference. And I think also it's worth mentioning, if you just come and do all the science and stuff like that, what are you actually giving back to the country that you're coming to visit? So spending time with people, learning about the communities, learning about the problems we have here, helping out, spreading the wealth a bit is really important. That's something that's been super important to my company, is looking at ways to employ as many people as possible in different areas and spread the knowledge that there's so much to see in Peru. So I think that's really important to try and get off the beaten track. For me is super important.
We've talked a little bit about all these different options you can do, but what's the best time to visit Peru? There's certain times of the year where it's too hot or too wet.
So our season normally kicks off in mid-March, but it still can be a little bit rainy. So more or less around Easter time is when the season starts, and then it goes through May, June, July, August is very busy but popular because it's the dry season, and that was the best time to do the trekking. Right through till November, we start to have a little bit of rain, and right into Christmas, we still run trips over New Year. I would avoid January, February because it can rain quite a lot in the mountains, but you can still visit the coast, for example. So we are a year-round destination.
And so for those dates, that's mostly for the Cusco Valley, or is that even higher up? Like I believe in some parts of northern Peru, it gets so high that there's actually snow in the winter when the rainy season comes. Is that correct?
There would be certain times in sort of January, February where you couldn't go hiking in Huaraz and places like that. Or one of the problems is we get the odd landslide on roads, so it's tricky to travel around. So if you're going to come out in the rainy season, allow an extra couple of days just in case. Normally we can get you certainly to Machu Picchu pretty much every day of the year if you need to. The Inca Trail is not open in February. They close it for maintenance. So that's the 1 month you can't do the Inca Trail.
And so if somebody did want to come, outside of the busy season, they want to come in November or December and do the Inca Trail, what would be the biggest difference compared to doing it in peak summer?
You might get the odd rain shower, but you also will get the advantage of hopefully a few less people, so it will be less busy. It'll be less cold because June, July is the middle of our winter, so it is quite chilly at night. We have beautiful sunny days where you're walking around in shorts and t-shirt, but as soon as the sun goes in, you need to reach for your down jacket, and certainly in the winter it's quite cold, whereas November, December, it's really quite pleasant all the time. So certainly think about coming in the off-season, March, April, even into May. It's beautifully green and it's our orchid season. So on the Inca Trail, you can hike and see amazing orchids. So yeah, the season has used to be May till September. Now it's March till December. So we can pretty much fit anyone in anytime.
And it's funny, we were talking before we started just about how we're seeing this in a lot of places. Seasons are extending, former peak seasons are maybe becoming no longer peak seasons. And one thing you mentioned, Peru's a great option if you want to escape, the heat that's been plaguing the Northern Hemisphere. The Northern Hemisphere summer, look south and there's some great options. And again, Inca Trail will be, really busy in, June, July, August, but you described a few other options that are not going to be anywhere near as busy, that you'll be able to get some solitude and have this, beautiful views and not have to deal with 45 C temperatures.
Yeah, certainly. Even if you come in June, July, when it is busy, if you plan ahead and we work together on an itinerary, you can get to places which really are off the beaten track, and you'll still get to see all the main sites as well. And yeah, the weather's really, really pleasant. It's very nice down here. So yeah, come and avoid the heat of Northern America and come on down. Yeah, it's lovely down here.
Now, recently, there's been some political upheaval in Peru. There's been news of situations. I don't know how recently, but I remember during the pandemic, there were some protests. What are things like currently?
This season has been, it started off fairly worryingly. We had some protests, but they were all over by the 1st of March. We were back up and running our trips from the 1st of March onwards, but sadly, a lot of the damage had been done. And so a lot of people didn't want to come to Peru because they were worried about protests. But I would say we've had this year the quietest year in form of strikes and protests and having to make changes. So it's all good here at the moment. The political situation is calm. There are no protests, and you can come to Peru. I would say it's as safe as it has ever been.
And it sounds like, based on what's gone on this year, that next year could be a really attractive option, that it may not be as crowded as it was, pre-pandemic. But are there some other tips that you have? So if someone's thinking they want to go to Peru, we've covered a few of them. What are some tips to maybe escape the crowds that might ruin a trip?
Plan ahead. Talk to someone about how to avoid the busy. I mean, you still want to go to the main sites, and we can get you to Machu Picchu. We can get you to the ruins in Sacred Valley. We can visit Cuzco. But you just need to be prepared to maybe jump off the bus and go for a hike. Even if you're coming in peak season, by planning ahead and being open to new ideas, places that you may not have heard of. I mentioned a place called Huacrapucara, which is an incredible ruin, which is just coming on to, people are beginning to talk about it. Palcoyo, the Laris Valley instead of the Inca Trail. There are amazing options if you're willing to explore, like that mountain bike trip that we talked about from Lake Titicaca. You'll not see another tourist the whole time until you get to the Sacred Valley of Machu Picchu. And even if you do come and you want to do the main sites, give yourself an extra day, and that way we can plan the itinerary exactly to avoid the busiest times at the busiest ruins, and you'll have a very pleasant experience.
As a local, you have this deep knowledge of Peru, and what do you think is a perfect 14-day itinerary for someone to come and see the sights, and also, have that incredible experience of, being on your own and having that communing with nature without 1,000 people around?
Yeah, I'm a bit of an outdoor person, but I would certainly say start maybe with a couple of days in Lima to explore the museums, have some amazing food, and visit the City of the Kings, as it's called. And then I'd come on up to Cuzco, probably go straight to the Sacred Valley for a few days, do the main sites, but maybe do them slightly differently. Jump on an e-bike go for a stand-up paddleboard, visit the salt pans, Maras, Moroi, visit Pisat ruins, down to Ollantaytambo, and then certainly try and fit in a good trek, maybe the Inca Trail or maybe the Lares Valley, or if you're up for something a bit longer like Choqquequirao. If you like being in the middle of nowhere, a 2, 3 or 4 day whitewater rafting expedition on the Rio Apurimac is unbelievable. I mean, and you could do that with kids as well. There are certain sections we run. Jump on a bike, do a bit of adventure there. I would try and go down to the jungle, spend a few days. The longer you spend in the jungle, the more chance of seeing good wildlife. And you can do that on a luxury cruise, or you can do it in an amazing, like a jungle lodge, and go on hikes there. And then I would consider visiting maybe the Colca Canyon, having a couple of days there, exploring hot springs, going to look for condors, Arequipa. I think that's at least 14 days, maybe Lake Titicaca, fit in a few days on the beach if you wanted to at the end. That's a good 2-week trip. So that would keep you busy.
It's funny. My wife and I, always playing, places where we want to go. And literally we were saying, if we want to take the kids to Peru, and we got to about 6 weeks to see everything we wanted to see. And that didn't go up to the north to Juarez or the Huayhuash. That was just kind of the southern area and into Bolivia for a bit. But there's just so much to see. It really is a spectacular place. And as you said, it's the first trip of many for a lot of people, because they go there once, they realize, I'm going to come back and do a different trek. And I'm going to see a different part of, I'm going to go to Lake Titicaca and go to La Paz and see that part as well. And they kind of just add on and come back again and again.
I would definitely say, as we say, think of this as your first trip to Peru. Don't try and do the whole of Peru in 2 weeks. It's you're not going to do it, and you'll end up needing a holiday at the end. Also, people think the Galapagos is near Peru. It's miles away from Peru. You can fit in the Galapagos and Peru and Machu Picchu, but to be honest, you're far better off doing the Galapagos really well and doing Peru and Machu Picchu really well, rather than trying to do that. And ditto with Bolivia and La Paz. Peru is worth coming just to explore bits of Peru. And don't try and do it all in one go. And enjoy it. Find ways to get off the beaten track. Get out into the great open. Look at the beautiful scenery. Have a picnic overlooking a lake. Meet some locals. Learn how to do some weaving. Do a ceramic class. Do a cooking course. Jump on a raft. If you're up for camping, it's if you're up for camping, you can definitely get really into the middle of nowhere and just have amazing experiences with amazing people.
And Paul, thanks for coming on the show today to share all this expertise and passion. As you're talking about the experiences, you're smiling. You can hear it in your voice. Your love for the adventure, the country, the experiences. And I just want to say thanks for sharing it with all of our listeners.
No, honestly, people ask me, when am I going to move back to the UK? And my honest answer is when I get bored. And I don't get bored at all. I'm still exploring Cusco. I go out of my door and I have an adventure every day. And I smile and I laugh a lot. And that's one of the best things about Peru. It's just a great place to be, great people to be with, and just adventures galore. So I love it. And I encourage as many people to come down. It's safe. And it's a fascinating place. You'll just have an amazing holiday here.
Excellent. And I'm going to put some links of the trips Paul discussed in the show notes, so you can check out these incredible trips. And with that, thanks for listening to this episode of the 10 Adventures podcast. We'll be back next week to explore the world and hear about more epic adventures. Listen to other episodes of the 10 Adventures podcast on Amazon Music at amazon.com/10adventures.